Hi everyone, Tracie here. Today's topic is discernment. Thank you, Megan. I am going to try to be general instead of going deep, even though Megan is a very deep person. Discernment is understanding and choosing that which is or leads to peace. It is the knowing and the comprehension of what supports life and what depletes life. It is seeing, or on the way to seeing, the traps and the temptations that create pain. It is seeing from the whole context instead of from a limited point of view. In Christianity, it is seeing without judgment. It is being guided by Source, God, love, peace, alignment. It is no longer sitting on the throne and deciding who's deserving and who is not deserving. It's stepping off of that pedestal of the accuser. It is seeing or leading to seeing the way that Source sees through love and peace. It is knowing what God's will is for your life and following that. Knowing that God's will for you is to be happy, joyous, and free. There's a gut feeling, there's discernment, and then there's intuition. And intuition, I think, is the highest or the best way to be, where a gut feeling is leading you to believe something's wrong and turning you in another direction. Discernment is trying to figure out other people's energy and what would be more supportive of life. And intuition is an instant knowing. Discernment is more what is harmful, destructive to me, and which way should I go and how should I be in the world. Where intuition holds a state of peace, knowing that no matter what happens, you are safe and secure. Even death itself is an absurd belief. Yes, the body does pass away, but life force energy cannot be destroyed. We can change form, but we are at the core Source energy. We couldn't even experience the body if it wasn't for Source energy. So when you're tapped into intuition, you always feel safe. Intuition doesn't operate as a belief, like if I believe I'm safe, it's a knowing. And this knowing comes as a direct revelation from Source energy. Before that happens, though, we will want to know discernment. We will want to know which way to go to benefit our life, to get that joy, that happiness, that peace that we love to experience. Most of us are filled with stress because of the way that we hold things in mind. And because of our experiences and what we've experienced in the past, we bring into the now and we experience it over and over, and we try to get out of stress, but we really haven't understood what exactly causes stress to be able to tap into that peace. You could, talk about God and Source, and you're just sharing concepts, but you're not actually knowing what that is. So there is a way, as we move through discernment, engaging and reading energy fields, to get to a place where we're operating by intuition all the time. It's probably going to take a little bit for people to get there. The first time I heard the term discernment, I thought that it came from outside myself, so I was discerning other people. And that's only partly true, because once things have been cleared up in our own psyche, then we no longer have to watch out there. We have, Eckhart Tolle talks about this, an alert presence, and we don't need to be fearful in order to know which way to move our car. We are alert. We're not in our head. We're not daydreaming. I'll do another video on imagination because it's very important to understand what the imagination's for. It's about creation. But people will misunderstand that we need fear and we need stress and we need sadness because it proves that we love. But love is the absence of stress. It's the absence of pain. It's the absence of fear. The fear programs are all the beliefs that keep us from intuitively trusting in Source. We can talk about God and our love for God, but really the ego doesn't trust. That's why it has to take up the reins, be the dictator, and do things ourselves. This morning we were having this conversation and I used the analogy of it's like going into the forest. You walk into the forest and this is your path. And what you find in the forest, you can't see the forest for the trees. And we will have tunnel vision and we will focus on one particular thing and we'll pull that out of the whole forest and say, this is the forest, when we haven't even begun to actually see everything from a peripheral contextual vision. And in the forest, there are people like the Sadducees and the Pharisees and the fundamental Christians, and they will be pointing at you, calling you a sinner. And even to understand that word we have to understand what exactly that means. So the whole world is the forest, and people are going to be pointing out to you your shortcomings, your character defects, the things that are wrong with you, why you've hurt them. And these are people in the forest that are accusing us. They themselves haven't begun to walk through the forest. Because when you begin to walk through the forest, what you're going to find are monsters, your shadow self, all of the things that create pain. And each person in their own time does the journey through the forest. And not everybody's ready to actually look at their shadow self. The monsters in the forest are also demons, not as in a sense that they're demonic, but they sure are painful, and they are full of accusations. They find fault and they accuse us night and day through our beliefs, through the collective consciousness. We all share in these little demons, and the courage to actually walk through the forest is needed. So Source actually gives us the courage to actually walk in the forest and face all of these beliefs. You're not good enough. You'll never get the job. You won't find happiness. It's in the future. Give it up. Kill yourself. Get a drink. Get the bowl of ice cream. All of these distractions that will stop us from actually turning and facing these beliefs inside ourselves, which we believe are real entities. Also in the forest, we find ourselves grabbing these aspects of ourselves that we've rejected. We rejected and judged this part of ourself, and so we've been broken and it's been scattered in the forest, and we are starting to collect this part of ourself that we betrayed and that we judged, and we bring it back into us and we become whole. So by the time you end up walking out of the forest, you're a very different person than when you walked in. You are now a whole being that is attuned to, if you will, source energy, which is the only power and the only love in the universe. Everything else along that you saw, although it felt real, the monsters all felt real. When you walk out of the forest, you can turn and look, and it was just smoke and mirrors. It was just illusions. There are generally two types of people, those that explode and those that implode. And I was the kind of person that imploded, so I would keep everything inside of myself. Eventually, it does lead to explosions. So it would be a self-hatred that one would experience, or a hatred for the world, depending on where you're attuning to. So let's say somebody slapped me in the face and I was an imploder, and I would make myself wrong or bad. I must have done something wrong to deserve that. I know that I've held myself, full of guilt, and so I will not be seeing their behavior of their slapping me. Of course, nobody loves to be slapped, but I would go in and make myself wrong and bad. So at that point, I wouldn't have the discernment, I wouldn't have the discernment to actually leave the situation. I would come back for more. So when I'm in the forest and I'm looking at all of my programs, my beliefs that tell me how much I hate myself, and I bring that up and I see all of these monsters, then I can see clearly with discernment and address the situation. why are you slapping me? And then I would make a choice to not be around a slapper. I would say, don't hit me. And if they continue to hit me, I'm going to leave the situation. You know, Eckhart Tolle says you either change it, accept it, or remove yourself from it. My job isn't really to change the slapper. It's to not get slapped. Of course, anyone that slaps another is in pain and they have some kind of self-hatred and lack of trust in the universe. So it's impossible for them to operate from intuition. They're operating from pain. There's a trick that the mind uses that I'm going to bring to your attention so that you don't fall for it, and it's called the hypothetical. So if I make a left turn and I hit something, the mind will go into, I shouldn't have done that, I should have known better. And it's only a hypothetical construct that if I turned right instead of left, then I wouldn't have got myself into that situation. And you can't know that. You cannot know that. So when we use discernment through that filter of the mind that says I shouldn't have done that, because if I didn't, I would have been better off. If I didn't marry that person, I wouldn't have experienced all this pain. But you can't know that, because when you're choosing, and not everybody chooses to go into the forest, you're going to face these monsters, these demons, these beliefs that belong to all of us. They aren't mine, they aren't yours, they belong to the collective. And that is what's going to trip you up from seeing or discerning what you should do. Another trick of the mind is believing that if you change a behavior, then your life will be better. And in some cases, that is true. But we could still feel stress of what we're holding in mind. We could appear to be angelic or saintly in our behaviors and just be really hateful and angry in our attitudes. Part of discerning things is actually being courageous enough and open enough to actually feel this pain, to instead of running out of the forest and avoiding the monsters, which are our own beliefs, we will feel it and allow it to be in us. And our presence, which is the source, which is love, heals all of this pain. But you know, just like the hand moves away from the stove because it's hot, we want to run out of the forest, or we want to look at everybody else. We want to point our finger at everybody else because we haven't gone through the forest yet. And you know, like A Course in Miracles says, the curriculum is mandatory, but the time to take it is optional. And so we don't get to decide who walks through the forest. We are all simultaneously teachers and students, and the people that have been put in your path are to bring up what is creating pain and also to support you. And you know, when we're drawn to someone that's kind and caring, it's more life supportive than someone that's ridiculing and criticizing us. But ultimately, even though those people that ridicule and criticize us are making us bulletproof so that we can walk through the forest and become more and more empowered by the time we get to the end. Because getting to the end is where life takes off, where it becomes joyful, where even death doesn't make us flinch, that we know that there's no such thing, that life is life. It can't be other than that. And so discernment, it gets more and more clear as we move along the path. But there are people along the path to help. We're always helping each other. We're along the path saying, hey, try this, go here, do that, or giving us a helping hand. And as we get closer to the end of the forest, we do feel, and it is true, that there is nobody. It's just you and God. It's you alone, and it feels like there's nobody. But that's down the road. That's when discernment moves into intuition. And by the time that we get to the end of the forest, we are empowered enough to actually stand alone and to allow the ego to die. One more thing about discernment is a lot of times the humans, we will include other people, like what they're thinking about us. What will they think if I get this job? What will my parents think if I get a divorce? What will my kids think? Blah, blah, blah. And we have a tendency to make our decisions based on what other people will think about us. And you can't change what other people think. They will see you through their own filters, and there's not a damn thing you can do about it. And so when it comes to discernment, allow them to hate you, to love you, and it will have nothing to do with you. When you're in the forest, you're going to hear a lot of thoughts, and you're going to see a lot of monsters. And you're going to walk through the forest, and it isn't going to be about them. They are free because love allows people to think and feel whatever they are feeling because they are in different places in the forest. And it's really none of our business. So we get invested in other people because we think it's more important that you love me rather than I love you. And what are you going to think about me? And you can't know. You can't know. Go ahead and search this out. You can't absolutely know what someone else is thinking about you. Even if they say it's true, you don't know they're lying. So it's not about other people. It's about you. And it's about you making it through the forest. And it's about you getting through the gut feelings and the discernment into intuition. And it's about you setting a course in your life so that you can align with Source, with God, which is happy, joyous, and free. You know, being miserable and depressed is here, and Source is here. You can see there's a big gap. Source isn't going to come down and pity us because Source holds that there's only love and there's only peace. So we have to move here instead of Source coming down and feeling sorry for us. When you're in the energy field of Source, which is love, joy, and peace, you are experiencing that. You are seeing through the eyes of Source. And when you resonate with this, when you know this, when it starts feeling like, oh my God, this is, you know that you've been touched, that there's been a seed flung. Anyway, love you, Megan. This has been really fun. Peace to you.